but the heat was too much for me, so I asked Michael to come out because I had to rest. When we got near Ken, who was under an umbrella reading, I started to feel nausea and could feel a horrible headache coming on. Everyone was staring at how fat I was. It made things worse. Soon, my breathing got heavier and heavier. I wanted to scream to Ken for help, but it was too late. It all went black. When I woke up, I was inside an ambulance that was taking me to the hospital. It was in a hospital room where Ken and Michael finally joined me. It was obvious that Michael had been crying. He started again as soon as he saw me. He looked hopeless and frightened. As you can imagine, it absolutely broke my heart. But I knew something like this was about to happen. All doctors told me that if you're overweight, you're 62% more likely to have a heart attack, 64% more likely to have a stroke, 81% more likely to have coronary artery disease, and over 70% more likely to develop type 2 diabetes. And having to live being dependent on pills for the rest of your life. This experience was the worst of my life, and the thought of not seeing Michael grow up and raise his own family was unbearable. I prayed to God to give me a miracle and help me. And now, I know God heard me. I was kept at that hospital until the next morning under observation, and they said it was only due to heat exhaustion. But the doctor who took care of me was blunt, and she told me that unless I started taking care of my health and reduced my high blood sugar, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure, I might not be so lucky next time. Later that day, I was taken back to the hotel, and even though Ken insisted we pack and go home, I decided to stay until the end of our vacation, which was only a few days away, as up until the incident, we'd been having a blast. It was around 2 p.m. that same day when I bumped into Isabella. She got worried when I told her the news, but also happy to see me still around. I told her what happened, and I just couldn't help myself, so I burst into tears. She came closer and hugged me, and we went into my room. I don't know why I felt like sharing my whole story with Isabella, but I am so glad I did. Because right before she left, she looked me in the eyes and told me, "Barbara, you are such a nice person. Don't worry. I will bring you something tomorrow that will help you get your health in balance and will also help you lose a lot of weight." The next morning, she knocked on my door and gave me 2 jars filled with what she described as a traditional Costa Rican tea. She told me that she was from Nicoya, a small peninsula in the western part of Costa Rica, and that drinking this tea was one of their oldest traditions. It turned out that in her hometown, a lot of people drank a cup of this tea in the morning and a cup of tea with a different blend of ingredients in the evening. Then she told me that she's been drinking this traditional Costa Rican tea ever since she was 15, and that's why she was looking so young and was overflowing with energy all day long. When I heard that, my eyes lit up because I sensed this was the breakthrough I had been looking for almost all of my adult life. I thanked her, and then she left to continue her work. Our holiday came to an end, and I wanted to say goodbye to Isabella before we left for home, but Isabella had a day off, so I couldn't. Ever since Isabella had given me the tea, I had wanted to start drinking it, but something stopped me. Deep down, I knew it was because I was afraid that I would only end up being disappointed one more time, which would have been too much. I'd spent 10 days at home since the end of our vacation, and I still hadn't touched the tea. But one evening, Ken came from the kitchen with a cup of tea in his hand. He told me, "Honey, it's time. I really do feel this one is gonna work." When I started sipping, I noticed a beautiful flavor. I finished the tea and slept on it. In fact, I slept so well that night that the next morning I woke up feeling so energetic and enthused. Most surprisingly, and unusual for me, I felt refreshed and less tired than I usually was in the mornings. Then I tried the morning tea. That also had a delicious and refreshing flavor. Looking back now, I will always remember a big boost in my energy that first time I tried it. As the days passed by and I continued my tea ritual, I felt like day by day I had more energy and was sleeping much better. After 7 days had passed, I decided to step on my scale. I felt how my clothes were fitting me better, but I thought that maybe it was just me feeling differently. With a step of anxiety, I took the step. Wow! I couldn't believe my eyes when the scale showed I was 5 pounds lighter already. Woohoo! For the first time in decades, I felt hope that I could finally get rid of my ugly belly fat, live a normal life, and bring the passion back into my marriage. After I had been drinking the Costa